When Lila brought her beloved cat, Whiskers, to the vet for a special checkup, she was filled with a sense of unease. Whiskers had always been a healthy and playful companion, and Dr. Harper, the trusted veterinarian who had cared for him since he was a kitten, had never expressed any concerns about his well-being. However, recently Whiskers had been acting differently, and the swelling in his abdomen had become impossible to ignore. Lila knew she couldn't delay the visit any longer. Dr. Harper greeted them warmly but quickly became serious as she began the examination. Whiskers sat nervously on the table, his usually bright eyes clouded with discomfort. As Dr. Harper moved the ultrasound wand over Whiskers' swollen abdomen, her expression changed. The calm, professional demeanor she always maintained was replaced by a look of deep concern. She stared at the screen intently, her brows furrowed. Lila felt her stomach drop. But before we start, smash the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on our upcoming stories. She had sensed something was wrong for weeks, but hearing it confirmed made her heart race. Panic began to set in. Lila paced the room, her mind racing with possibilities. She bent down to pet Whiskers, her fingers brushing over his soft fur. Her eyes drifted to the computer screen where the ultrasound images were still displayed. Curiosity and desperation got the better of her. She approached the computer and studied the images, hoping to make sense of them. The shapes on the screen were a confusing jumble of shadows and lines. Frustrated, she realized she wasn't equipped to interpret the medical data. Just as she contemplated looking for Dr. Harper, she heard the vet's voice from the hallway. "Sorry it took me so long, but I have bad news," Dr. Harper said as she re-entered the room. Her tone was somber, and Lila's heart sank further. Dr. Harper took a deep breath. "Whiskers needs emergency surgery. There's no time to waste if we want to save him." Lila was stunned. The words didn't seem real. "Surgery? Why? What's wrong?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I'll explain everything later," Dr. Harper said urgently. "Right now, we need your consent to proceed. Every second counts." Lila hesitated, overwhelmed by the sudden turn of events. She wanted to call her boyfriend Jacob to discuss the situation, but Dr. Harper's urgency left no room for delay. With tears streaming down her face, she finally said, "Yes, do whatever it takes to save him." As Dr. Harper carried Whiskers into the operating room, Lila was left behind, the door closing firmly between them. She sank into a chair in the waiting room, her mind racing with fear and uncertainty. Fumbling for her phone, she called Jacob. When he answered, his voice immediately filled with concern. Lila couldn't sit still. She paced the waiting room, her heart pounding. The other pet owners in the room looked at her with sympathy, but their presence did little to ease her anxiety. Each tick of the clock seemed louder than the last, marking the passage of time with excruciating slowness. When Jacob finally arrived, his face was a mixture of worry and determination. Lila rushed to him, and they embraced tightly. "I'm so scared," she admitted. As they waited, they speculated about what could be wrong with Whiskers. Their theories ranged from a simple infection to something far more serious. But the truth was, they had no idea. The uncertainty was unbearable, and each passing minute felt like an eternity. Finally, after what felt like hours, Dr. Harper emerged from the operating room. Her face was calm but serious, making it impossible to gauge the outcome. Lila and Jacob stood up, bracing themselves. "The surgery went well," Dr. Harper announced. Relief flooded through Lila and Jacob, but the vet's tone suggested there was more to the story. "Whiskers is stable, but we're not out of the woods yet. He'll need close monitoring and additional tests to determine the underlying cause of his condition." Lila's legs felt weak with relief and worry. "Can I see him?" "Not yet," Dr. Harper replied gently. "He's still recovering from the anesthesia. We'll let you know as soon as he's awake." Lila and Jacob returned to their seats, holding hands tightly. Though the immediate crisis had passed, they knew there was still a long road ahead. As they waited, they clung to the hope that their beloved Whiskers would pull through, determined to do whatever it took to help him recover. The relief, however, was short-lived. Dr. Harper's grave expression hinted that the ordeal was far from over. "I need you to call the police," Dr. Harper said abruptly. Why would the police be needed for Whiskers' medical issue? Their minds raced, considering possibilities, but none made sense. Lila's voice trembled with urgency. "We need to know." What's wrong with Whiskers? The suspense was unbearable, and she could feel the fear gnawing at her. Jacob placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, silently encouraging her to stay strong. Dr. Harper took a deep breath. During the surgery, we found something unusual. Her words were carefully chosen, her tone measured. Lila and Jacob listened intently, their emotions oscillating between hope and dread. Dr. Harper's explanation painted a picture of an unexpected discovery that went beyond the realm of typical veterinary concerns. Her description was technical, but her concern was unmistakable. As the reality of the situation became clearer, Lila felt a chill run down her spine. This wasn't a simple illness or injury. It was something far more sinister. She glanced at Jacob, who returned her look with equal unease. They both understood that this moment marked a turning point, one that required them to act swiftly and decisively. The idea that someone had intentionally harmed her beloved cat was incomprehensible. She felt a cold wave of disbelief wash over her, quickly replaced by a growing sense of dread. Who could do such a thing? Why? Anger flared within her, hot and fierce. Her fists clenched as she fought to contain the fury building inside her. Her eyes blazed with a mixture of pain and determination. Whoever had done this would not go unpunished. She vowed to herself and to Whiskers that she would find out who was responsible and hold them accountable. Dr. Harper detailed the evidence found during the surgery. The precision of the harm inflicted left no doubt that it was intentional. The cruelty of the act was almost too much to bear, and Lila felt sickened by the thought. Jacob's hand tightened around hers, a silent reminder that they would face this challenge together. Without hesitation, Lila and Dr. Harper contacted the police. Lila's voice was steady but firm as she recounted the situation to the officers, emphasizing the urgency of their plight. Every word she spoke carried the weight of her determination to see justice served. She knew that time was of the essence. The police arrived at the clinic with a sense of urgency. Their presence brought a glimmer of hope to Lila, though it was tempered by the realization that this was only the beginning of a long and arduous journey. Lila and Dr. Harper provided detailed statements recounting everything they knew about Whiskers' condition and the evidence uncovered during the surgery. Lila's voice was unwavering as she spoke, her resolve shining through despite the emotional turmoil she felt. Meanwhile, Whiskers began to stir. When his eyes fluttered open, Lila felt an overwhelming surge of relief. Tears welled up as she whispered his name, but Lila's focus remained on the investigation. The police canvassed her neighborhood, seeking clues to uncover the perpetrator. The normally peaceful community was now a hub of tension and speculation. Neighbors exchanged concerned whispers, their unease palpable. Several residents voiced suspicions about Mr. Wilson, a reclusive neighbor known for his gruff demeanor. Mr. Wilson's behavior had long been a source of discomfort for the community. His isolation and odd habits had often drawn quiet judgment, but now they seemed ominous. When he failed to respond to police inquiries, the suspicion surrounding him deepened. Lila found herself watching the investigation unfold with a mix of apprehension and anticipation. The police eventually entered Mr. Wilson's property. What they discovered in his shed confirmed their suspicions. Incriminating evidence linked him to Whiskers' poisoning. The revelation sent shockwaves through the neighborhood. Lila's emotions were a whirlwind of relief and vindication, tempered by the horror of what had transpired. Mr. Wilson was apprehended, his motive revealed during interrogation. He confessed that he had been frustrated by neighborhood cats damaging his garden. His petty grievances had escalated into a reckless and malicious act. Lila listened to the details of his confession with a heavy heart, struggling to comprehend how such trivial irritation could lead to such cruelty. The police's findings left no doubt about Mr. Wilson's culpability. The pesticides he used were illegal and highly toxic, posing a danger not only to animals but to the community at large. Lila shuddered at the thought of how close she had come to losing Whiskers to such negligence and malice. As Mr. Wilson faced legal consequences, the neighborhood grappled with the reality of what had occurred. The shock and dismay brought residents closer, united in their support for Lila and Whiskers. The incident served as a sobering reminder of the importance of vigilance and compassion in their community. Whiskers' recovery was slow but steady. Each small milestone brought Lila immense joy. His increasing strength and playful spirit were testaments to his resilience. Lila cherished their bond more than ever, grateful for every moment they shared. Though the journey had been harrowing, Lila found solace in the support of her loved ones and neighbors. She looked forward to a future filled with peace and safety, determined to honor Whiskers' survival by cherishing the life they had fought so hard to protect. Together, they embraced a new beginning, leaving the darkness of the past behind